Hello, and welcome to today's installment of Created for More, the podcast. It's our guest segment today, and boy, have I got a guest for you. Hang tight. So today I've got the incredible Olamumi Eson. And she is a trained psychologist and UK certified psychosexual and cognitive behavioral therapist who specializes in helping couples and individuals discover, explore, and enjoy mind blowing sexual connection, pleasure, and fulfillment. Before you start to do a double take and wonder if indeed you are still on Created for More, the podcast, I want to just assure you that you are. Calm down. You know what this podcast is about? It's about you being more, you expanding your horizon, you living and maximizing every single area of your life. And that includes the area that we're going to be discussing today. And one of the reasons why I thought, Olawumi is the perfect guest to have on the show is because of a couple of things. One, there is the fact that, we're going to be talking about, sex and why, it's viewed a little bit as it's almost a tabooish subject to talk out in the public in the open, where I'm from, where she's from. So we're going to be hopefully unveiling and removing some of the, or helping destigmatize some the ways in which people view it. But beyond that, Olawumi is just this audacious brand. Like literally, she just has a presence, and every time I see her, just the commitment she has to what she does, how she just goes against the grain. It is so inspiring. So I thought, you know what, let her come and spread some of her magic on the show and teach us what it is and what it takes to go out there and be yourself, your authentic self, fulfilling your God-given purpose, regardless of what people think or do not think about what you're doing. So that was a bit long-winded, but totally necessary. Hello, Olawumi, once again. It is wonderful to have you on the show.
Hi, Tombra. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Honestly, I've been dying, absolutely dying to have you sat exactly where you are, just because of your personality and everything that you do, the great work that you do. So first of all,
Thank you.
um, I want you to start by introducing yourself in your own words, because
Hmm.
obviously we have all the scripts, but nothing does it justice as much as you telling us in your own words who you are and what your essence is. I always ask my guests to tell me about what is the essence of you.
Mm, yes. Thank you so much for having me again, and I'm very happy to be here. So, as you said, my name is Olamide. So, I'm a trained psychosexual therapist and cognitive behavioral therapist. For me, when it comes to sex, I believe in people being sexually aware. I
Okay.
believe in people being their authentic sexual selves and not what society has put down
Mm,
as, societal expectations or boxes you should fit in. I believe very much in people being their authentic sexual selves. And I believe sex is such an amazing gift from God. It's
mm,
such a beautifully amazing gift that if you're not enjoying it or if you're not understanding it, you're shortchanging yourself of
mhm.
this amazing gift that you should enjoy. We hear that there's no sex in heaven, so let's enjoy it
Ah!
here.
I love it. And just to say, and I think I'm saying this more for myself because obviously I don't know what you believe, but I personally believe in enjoying sex within the boundaries or confines of marital union and all of that. So if you're listening to this and you're single, do not take this as license. The Tomba says go run crazy. Sex is time for me to have sex. I'm just gonna go out there and do whatever. That's not what I'm saying. You sit down. You sit down and listen and wait. Take the knowledge and
Yeah,
use it at the appropriate time. Okay. All right, then.
yeah,
Awesome. Thank you
absolutely.
so much. Thank you. So, like, how? I think the first thing I want to know is like how did you, is this something, is this, was this a childhood dream? I don't think it could have been. Like, how did you navigate, like how do you go from where being a child, like who were you as a child, and how did you even go from there here? Like, I would love to
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah. Okay. So, interestingly, I've been interested in sex from a very young age, right? I
What?
mean, not necessarily intercourse, right? But understanding it. For instance, I see people get pregnant, right? Abort babies. So, for instance, when I was in secondary school, a senior of mine got pregnant. Had the baby in the bush. She went into the bush, had the baby herself, dug a hole, put the baby inside, buried the baby basically, and then hunters found, a lot of things like that, right? And I used to wonder so much that why isn't anybody talking to these people about how they should navigate sex?
Oh,
As do you
wow.
understand? So I was very curious. Like, I would ask my mom, why are parents not talking to their children about sex? Why are people going this route? So I was very, very interested, and I was a voracious reader as well, right? And so I would try to learn, I would read and read. So for a long time, I thought I'd be sex educating the African child. As a matter of fact, I thought that was what I was going to be doing for a long time. And as I grew, right, as I grew, a lot of my interest also began, as I became an adult, my interest also became in sex itself. And when I had my first child, she was a very big baby. She was like 5.2 kg, if you can imagine that. Yeah.
Wow, that's big.
And I was after I had that kind of baby, right, I was asking people, the doctors, the nurses, cousins, sisters, what do you do with a vagina that has birthed this kind of big
Mm,
baby? Do you get?
mm.
And people were literally embarrassed that I was talking about my vagina to them, right? And everybody just kept saying, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's okay. And then I wasn't getting any answers. And of course, I mean, by then, because I knew that I wanted to go into the field of sex, I just didn't know specifically where, right? I was already in my field of psycho. I'd already done my degree in psychology and all that. I was already taking some courses in sexuality and all of that, right? And then at this point, it became so. But at that time, I felt like at that time I was still taking it leisurely, right? Like, okay, I'm learning this thing, I'm interested in this. But when it got to that point, I think that was a very that was a defining moment that people really need this help. So for someone like me who is even interested in it, who is comfortable enough to even talk about these things and cannot get the help that she needs, right? And now I'm speaking out to say, what do I do about this? And I can't get the help that I need. It dawned on me that, you know what, I think we need to be more serious about this, right? And at that time, I was praying to God to say, okay, God, what is the direction, right? I've been thinking sex educating the African. What is your direction? Where is this going, right?
Mm.
And then at that time, God gave me clarity to say, you know what, this is what I want you to focus on, right? Sex in marriage, right? This is what I want you to focus on, right? This is what I want you to focus your energy on, helping couples understand the pleasure that is available to them. Basically, making sex in marriage look so good that
Mm.
people are like, oh, well, what do I mean? I'm missing something. Do you understand? Yeah, not to put pressure on people, but to help people realize the fullness of what they have in their hands, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the defining moment for me. And since then, I mean,
You
we
haven't
basically
looked
haven't
back.
looked back.
You haven't looked back. You've been riding away.
Yeah.
I love it. So I want us to go back on a couple of things, because the
Yes, sure.
what I wonder is, you mentioned that you were speaking to your mom in secondary school about, why wasn't there any sex education for people? Why was there just such a lack of awareness?
Yeah.
Where we're from, I don't know. Like, is that a conversation that you like?
Yeah.
What? So I'm just like, first of all, it tells me like your parents were open-minded. So what was
Hmm.
their approach
Okay.
to,
So
teaching you about sex and just
yeah.
exposing you?
Yeah. So my mom specifically, my dad and I never had that conversation. So my mom specifically didn't teach me about sex. We didn't really have that sex talk, except where I prompted it to say, okay, why is this not happening? And she's like, okay, what do you want to know, right? But one of the things that she did for me that I think also really helped me to navigate situations like this was she was very open around relationships, right?
Mm.
So I had my first boyfriend when I was 15,
Mm.
and she was like, look, you are not doing corner corner love. You're not taking him, meeting him in one place. Bring him to the house. We need to see him. So bring him. So I was 15. He was about 17, I think, 16 or 17. So I brought him to the house. Everybody knew him, right? Even my grandma, he would sit down in the living room, be gisting with my grandma and all of that. So everybody knew him, right? And we did not, because of that openness, there was no pressure. We dated for 3 years and we didn't even have intercourse. There was no pressure. Because for us, there was a lot of responsibility given to us to say, okay, we're trusting you that both of you are going to do the right thing, right? And we did. I mean, the trust that they gave us was so huge. It was really, really significant for us, right? They would even allow me go to his house. His parents knew me. His elder siblings knew me. So it was. Do you understand? Like that. So
because it's almost counterintuitive in a sense. It's like you wouldn't expect that if you have all that freedom. What is the psychology around it? Like if you have all that freedom, like you wouldn't abuse it. Like there has to be some sort of underlying principle.
Yeah. So one of the things I've come to realize is that a lot of things thrive in secrecy, especially things that are negative, right? So the secrecy is the spice. Right, it really adds a lot of allure to whatever it is that you're doing. So, for instance, take somebody who is stepping out on his spouse, or a woman who's stepping out on a spouse. Right, the secrecy, that's where the allure is. Do you understand? Right, and so a lot of those things thrive in secrecy. But when that element of secrecy is taken out of it, it's just like when you are hungry, right? So there's no food to eat and all of that because you are deprived. The desire for it is so huge.
Oh, wow.
But then you're in your house, you have so much food to eat. And then you're like, do I really want to eat this? Do I want to eat this? Right? So sometimes that's how it happens. That's why I tell people, look, when we talk about sex educating your children, for instance, right? You think that, and of course, sex educating your child is not limited to intercourse, right? But a lot of people think, if we're talking to our children about sex, it's going to make them more curious. It's going to make them go and experiment. But that's the entire opposite, right? As a matter of fact, it makes them open enough to come and trust you with whatever they hear, right? Versus you don't tell them and their friends tell them and they're like, this thing my mom didn't tell me. When I asked her about sex, she shut me up. Okay, so I'm going to say, but this thing sounds interesting. Why don't I try it? That's how it works. But when you bring it into the open, so for instance, I do this with my children from as young as age 1. We're already teaching them about their bodies because that's where sexuality education starts from, their bodies and everything. So something happened, for instance, last week with my daughter, and her cousin came to the house, and then she asked her cousin, why she now she's 8. She's 8 now, all right. So her cousin came to the house, and her cousin was like, and she was like, why do you wear shorts under your dress, right? And her cousin goes, you have to be careful. And then her cousin goes ahead to tell her a graphic story of how somebody was raped, right? And it was totally inappropriate for her age. It was, right? But she came to me, right? And she said, mommy, this is what my cousin told me. She told me this. I asked her this. She told me. So she said everything, right? And then, of course, we had to talk to the cousin and everything. I said, okay, some of these things, I understand why you told her, right, to protect, but some of this information was inappropriate. Do you understand? But you would find that because we've been having those conversations, it was very easy for her to just come and tell me that, mommy, we're talking, it was just natural. It was a natural flow, right? And so when people in her class who say things like that, she comes back and she tells me, because when you expose them to this, what you are doing is empowering them, basically. You're not saying, I'm going to shield you from everything. No, you are empowering them because you can't do everything for them as parents. You are empowering them to go out on their own and say, look, this is some of the things you will see out there, but I'm empowering you with this information, with this knowledge, so that you know what is right from wrong. And if you're not sure, you can come back. There's that open line of communication. You just come back to me and say, this is what I've heard. Is it wrong or right? Because if you don't do it, someone else will do it, or something else will do it. Right?
If you don't do it, somebody else will do it, or something else will do it.
Absolutely.
So good. I want to say, so what is, in a practical sense, what is appropriate? Let's pick a child 10 years old. What should they know about sex? For parents that are like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I mean, how do we start to sensitize them by, giving them, tools, practical tools that they can actually use to educate them?
Yeah. So if you have a 10-year-old child who has never received any form of sexuality education, obviously you'd want to know what she knows, right?
Mhm.
So create a safe environment to say, okay, I'd like to have a bit of a discussion with you, but what have you heard about this, right? Let's know what she knows first so that you can, try to correct some of the misconceptions that she may have, right? And if she doesn't know much, then you can start from educating her about her body, right?
Mhm.
It's possible that at that age she might also get a period, or she might have also gotten a period. So you want to educate her about things like that, her body boundaries, where you should the aspects of your body that are private, right? The aspects of your and helping people understand that look, the fact that your vulva is private, your breasts are private, doesn't make those places bad. They're a part of you, right? They're a part of you, right? They shouldn't be exposed, yes, but then just like your hand, your face, call them the correct name so that they know. And there's no shame because that's where shame starts from. For a lot of us now who are adults, a lot of shame started from there. You
Yes.
ask your parents what is a vagina, what is it? And they shut up your mouth, did you hear that rubbish? I don't ever say that nonsense again. Right?
And
Or you find a little girl, she just sitting and she just touches her vulva or something, and then everybody all hell breaks loose. Who taught you that? What is going on? Right? And there's a lot of shame associated with that. So people are very disconnected from that part of themselves, and then they grow up. And of course, what are we still hearing as we grow up? Don't have sex. Don't do this. Don't touch a boy. Don't let a boy touch you. Everything is don't. So everything we're receiving basically is fear-based sexuality education, right? And then what happens? You become an adult, and then next thing they're asking, "Where's your boyfriend?" And then you get married, and next thing they're asking, "Okay, yes, I hope you have given your husband." What are you giving him? You don't even. I mean, how do we change years of programming of fear based? Sex is bad, is dirty. Be afraid. Do you understand all of that fear, negative emotions? You want everything to just turn around because somebody said I do, right? So you try to so for a 10-year-old girl, for instance, if she hasn't had any, you want to educate her, let her know the parts of the body, and this is not dirty, it's just a part of you, right? And this is what it is. So girls have this, boys have this. I'm sure that the 10-year-old will know that anyway. But again, it's good
you'll be
to say those
surprised.
things,
You'll be
right?
surprised.
Yes, you're right. So it's good to say those things. And it's also good to establish boundaries, right? As much as you're saying you shouldn't allow people to touch you in this place, you also need to establish boundaries with the child to say you also cannot touch people in that place, right? Because those are their private areas, so all of that goes back and forth and all of that. And you encourage the child, okay, again, this is not like a one-time conversation. This is like a culture that parents should build with their children, right? And as you go through, you keep telling them whatever you hear, come and tell me, come and tell me, come and ask me. This, I mean, we have an open door policy. You can always ask me anything. So, for instance, um, the first time I was watching a movie one day, and it was, movies that are for even for kids. You see people kiss sometimes there, right? And then they kissed, right? I didn't panic and run to change the channel or say, "Oh, go guys." No, I said, "Okay, do you know what they're doing?" Right? She said, "Yes, they're kissing," and even for my 5-year-old son, "Oh, they're kissing," and then we say, "Okay, fantastic." It's good to kiss. There's nothing wrong with kissing, but kissing is for mommies and daddies. So we explained it to them in the way their age could understand at the time, right? Say kissing is for mommies and daddies. So of course they see me and my husband in the morning, mwah, mwah. Of course not erotic, passionate kind of kissing, but mwah, mwah. So they see that, and then we explain to them at that level to say, oh, kissing is for mommies and daddies. So you are a little boy, you are a little girl, you cannot kiss somebody on the lips, right? You cannot do, and if somebody wants to kiss you on the lip, you say no, you can peck me instead. You can give me a peck instead. Do you understand? So all of those conversations we've had, we're not running away from them. We know that this is a natural part of who you are. So for instance, my daughter again came home and said, oh, they taught us about intercourse in school. They did this in school, that a penis goes into a vagina and all of that. I'm like, oh yes, that's true. And then we spoke about it. And it's just like, is that what you and daddy do? I'm like, yes. And then I explained to her, because okay, our values as Christians, right? Says that we should do this in the context of marriage. So when you're married and then you have a husband of your own, you can do this. So we explained all of these things, that it's not about fear, because these children will learn these things.
I know. Tell me about it. My daughter, I think she's 9 years old now, but she's probably 8 years old when she asked to me. She was like, we've been talking about it, but I think that was the most like jarring moment where she was just like, she just came straight from me. She's like, so mommy, where do children come from? How does I know it's mommies and daddies, but how does daddy get the baby? What does daddy
Yeah.
do for the child to come? It's like, trust you to ask me this question. And I remember in that split second, I remembered my mom because I asked her the same question when I was 5 years old. Maybe
Okay.
let me say about six thereabouts. And my mom looked at me and said, from my mouth, and she's like, "You vomit the child." Can
Okay.
you imagine? In that moment, I was tempted to do, the Nigerian thing is that don't worry for
Yeah.
that. And no, I didn't. And I said to her, look, mommies and daddies, daddy has a penis, put it inside mommy, and she's like, but how does he put it? That's just because does he rub? And then she was trying to really understand it, and I was like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. It's for mommies and daddies. You get it. And instead, she was like, oh my god, I don't want anyone to ever do that to me.
Oh gosh.
We left that conversation, and I felt proud of myself in that, she will always remember her first
Yes.
discussion with me about
Conversation
it, and it
around that.
wouldn't
Yes.
be a lie, it will be
Exactly.
truth, but
Exactly.
just truth that
Exactly.
is cut down to a level that she can understand.
Absolutely. It's not even something to hide, especially in this age, right?
Yes.
Where people have access to the internet and can just Google what is sex, right? And what will come out is not exactly what you like. Because if you even look at the images alone, it's likely that you're going to see people actually having sex, right? Yeah. And so it's a lot. It's not something parents should run away from, but should steer, right, and guide. Parents should lead that conversation so as to guide the children. All right.
So when you started speaking and you were talking about God and sex, you started talking about, you were talking and you were asking God, where should he lead? Where should I go? And then you said, ultimately it wasn't like, think about sex in context of marriage and help people. So many people, and we've touched on it, but I really want us to hone down. So many people, we've just been, I don't know, it's like as if, sex is just such a taboo word, in the sense that it's not a Christian thing. I want us to look at it through the lens of Christianity now. It's not really a Christian thing to prioritize it, to try to enjoy it. It feels like it's an earthly pleasure that is ephemeral. It's not something that you should really So how would you start to? I mean, and in the line of work that you do, I'm sure, and maybe you could even give us some examples. People will probably be messaging you that are more close-minded and say, what's all this that you're doing? Do you understand? Just help us start to deconstruct some of the beliefs around sex and Christianity.
Yeah. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Yes, you're absolutely right, because a lot of people think of sex as this thing of the flesh, right? So how then can I still be spiritual and be engaging in things of the flesh, right? And I tell people, I say, look, if you look at it, right, God gave us the gift of sex, not just for procreation. But let's even start from procreation for people that make noise about procreation, right? Let's start from there. God is God, right? He literally could have made us vomit children, just like your mom said. He literally could have done that. You just vomit one egg like that, and you put the egg in one place, the egg will start growing. And before you know, right? He could have it could have, right, made us have children or procreate in any way. But he chose this amazing experience, right? And not just for the sake of the experience. In this same experience, there's pleasure for you. Imagine that. In this same experience of so procreation is one thing, right? So God could have said, okay, have intercourse, the man puts his sperm and all of that, and then you get pregnant and then you give birth to the baby. But he didn't stop there. He had to add pleasure to the mix. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't make a mistake, right? The fact that as a human being you can experience pleasure during the process from touch. Like, why are there so many nerve endings in your nipples, in your clitoris, in the penis, and all of that? Do they really have to be there for us to actually procreate, or to just know what I mean? God did these things intentionally because he's intentional about our pleasure, right? God has created us body, mind, spirit. He takes care of us in all of these ways, right? And so, for instance, you will see people who will say, oh, I'm sick, I'm going to pray and I'm going to be fine, right? That's the only thing I want to do. But I tell people, I say, look, I think you limit God when you focus on how we can work in the spirit alone. God created you body, mind, and spirit. It means that in your body, if you are sick in your body, He has put herbs. He gave us herbs, right? To heal our bodies. He has put the knowledge in people to either transform those herbs to some form of medication that you can take, right? Or to at least put herbs together in a way that is good for your body, right? Not only did He put the herbs, He put the knowledge in people about these herbs to heal your body. And then He also put knowledge in people about how to work with your mind, right? Psychologists, therapists, and all of that. He's put the knowledge in people how to work with your mind. And then God can work directly through the Spirit. You cannot limit God to one channel. And the same thing happens. The way God cares about our spirit, He cares about our minds. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it comes the well springs of life, right? So it means that God cares about our minds and what goes into our minds and our hearts, right? God cares about our bodies, right? He nourishes us with food, water, and everything. Why would you think God does not care about our pleasure? Right? Why was He so intentional that He had to give us net endings in specific areas, right? So that we can enjoy pleasure. Like, for instance, look, a woman, for instance, and maybe a man, anybody as a matter of fact. But let's stick with a woman, for instance, right? A woman is capable of having so many types of orgasms: vaginal orgasms, clitoral orgasms, G-spot orgasm. Some women orgasm even when their nipples are soft. Do you understand? And aside from even all of these orgasms, just the pleasure alone, somebody can lick your ear and you're who put it? Am I the one that put it there? All these nerve endings in your body was created with you for your pleasure to enjoy in marriage. Do you understand? And so how can you tell me, except you are saying God made a mistake? Because you didn't put these nerve endings there yourself, right? Except you're telling me God made a mistake. You have pleasure, you enjoy pleasure with your partner, your body releases oxytocin, your body releases endorphins, feel good hormones. I did not put it there, neither did you. So except you tell me that God didn't know what He was doing. So sometimes some of us as Christians will receive the gift of salvation, but we don't receive the gift of sexual pleasure because we think it's about the flesh. But God cares about who you are as a person, your body, your mind, as much as He cares about your spirit. And because this is who you are in totality. You can't exist as body alone without a mind or spirit. You are just a shell. Your mind or your spirit cannot exist. If your spirit exists and there's nobody, it means you are dead and you're not even here anyway, right? So all of this is who you are in totality. And your sexuality, your pleasure, everything was created for you to enjoy. And I don't think God made a mistake.
God didn't. I love that. You had several consecutive mic drop moments there. I was just like, boom, 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 boom. God did not make a mistake.
He did not make a mistake.
He could have done it any other way, but He did it the exact way. He did it because He wants us to enjoy the fullness of who we are, body, mind, and spirit. You receive the gift of salvation, but you don't receive the gift of pleasure. Oof. That is so tweetable. That is so tweetable. And then I was asking you, and before actually, I'm going to segue there in a second. But so, what do singles do? What would you advise singles to do to prepare for just this world? Like, some singles are listening to this and like, hey Tomba, I don't know what you want me to do with this episode. You're saying that I shouldn't go out and just find the next man or woman and da 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 da. So why is this here? Why is this important that we talk about this? Why is it important that they hear this? And what does it do for them in the long term?
Yeah. So the truth is, as we said before, right? Sexuality does not start in marriage. From the moment you are born, your sexuality is an integral part of who you are. It doesn't just activate when you're. There's a reason God activated sex hormones at certain points in time in life, around your pre-teens, right? There's a reason it's activated at that point. Do you understand? So sexuality doesn't just start in marriage. Yeah, it is enjoying the pleasures of intercourse. Yes, that according to God's plan should happen in the context of marriage, right? But your sexuality starts from in fact, even before you were born, right? Because when your parents are pregnant, they're so what's the sex of the baby? Everything starts with it. So you're a sexual being, and that's just the truth, right? And for singles, yes, we cannot run from the fact that a lot of people are choosing to explore outside of marriage and all of that, right? But at the same time, I think that people are just jumping on that pleasure wagon without really understanding sexuality or sex and all of that, right? So once you just start feeling one way, you feel, okay, yes, I must express this, I must do this and do that and do everything, right? And so I think that a lot of people are being mastered by sexuality, are being mastered by sex and not the other way around, right? Do you understand? And so that's why, and in the same vein, that's why some people run away from it and say, oh, no, 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 I don't want to talk about it. When we get into marriage, we'll handle it. Big problem. Because you get into marriage, you don't even have the faintest clue. Years of programming, negative messages have sunk into your mind and you can't even navigate it, right? So people are basically either running away from it or jumping right into it without understanding it, right? So I think that people need to understand, what sexuality is, or even what sexual pleasure is. So yes, a lot of things may have happened and you've received negative messages and all of that, right? But as a person, where are you today? Where are you today? What are your thoughts and beliefs about what sex should be, right? What are your thoughts and beliefs? Are they empowering or are they disempowering, right? Because even if you're not married yet, if you go into marriage with beliefs that are disempowering, they're not going to serve you, right? So the Bible says we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. Yes, a lot of damage may have been done over the years, but you come into your own and then you transform yourself. A lot of us have to do that transformation of self by the renewing of our minds. What is this sex about? What is it really? What am I supposed to know? Do you understand? Do I start to understand do I have to start reprogramming the messages I've received? Is sex really bad? Is it really dirty? Right? Is it the way society is saying it should be? Right? Or you are even in a relationship where you're saying, okay, we're not sexually active. Are you even talking about sex? Right? So you see that a lot of people would not talk about sex until they get married. Let's handle it when we get into marriage. But it's a big problem because I said, look, so I'm sitting right in front of you, right? The sexual behavior that I present with, it's not just this person in front. It's not the me in my present, right? It is me from long ago. Do you understand? So my beliefs, my learnings, my experiences, everything brought me into this moment, right? Do you understand what I mean? So when you say let's wait to marriage or whatever, let's jump right into it. You're forgetting that this person is a sexual being, but the sexuality and the way the person presents sexually is informed by a lot of things, right? So you meet somebody and then you say, oh, let's not talk about sex till we get married. Let's handle everything in marriage. You get into marriage and then the person says, well, I believe sex is not a big deal. It's only for procreation. So when we're about to have a baby, that's when we'll have sex, right? And then you are now, hey, what I've been hearing about sex should be better, should be more, should be this. And then this person says, no, it's only for procreation. Because you don't even understand each other's sexual beliefs. You don't understand where your beliefs originated from, what this person holds as beliefs. You don't understand it, right? That's why you would go into marriage and then you have sex and then one night somebody brings their bum to you and say, let us have anal sex. Because you didn't talk about it, right? Or somebody says, let us have oral sex, and the other person says, no, this is the matter I used to pray. God forbid, it will never happen. Do you understand? Right? To the point that couples can't even talk about sex. Right? Okay, we're having sexual problems. What's going on? Or how do we even we are not even having problems. How do we improve our sex? And don't worry about it. When we are in it, we'll be doing it. Don't worry. People can't even talk about it, right? So what singles should be preparing for is navigating these things, reassessing their beliefs and say, okay, these beliefs, are they going to be helpful to me? Or are they even helpful to me now? How do I develop more awareness exactly of myself as a sexual person? How do I develop more awareness, right? Sex is not a monster. Your sexuality is not a monster that will devour you, or like, because the hormones are now activating. Now think, hey, Jesus, my life. If I even think about it, I'm gonna die. It's gonna grab me. It's a lie.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. I love it.
You can't control it,
Mm.
right? You can't control it. Yeah. And I think one of the most beautiful examples that I see, right, is, for instance, a woman who breastfeeds, right? So your husband sucks your breast, and for instance, you're getting pleasure. But your baby is sucking your breast. But what has happened? And of course, if you are not feeling any pain or anything, your baby is sucking your breast, and you shut down that response mentally.
Yeah, you're on
Do you
your phone.
understand? Do you know how powerful that is? Right? Like, of course, I've met people who will say, "Oh, my baby was sucking my breast and I was aroused," and they'll be really distressed, right? So I'm just saying that happens, but I'm saying for the most part, you find that you are able to mentally block that response. That is how powerful you are. The sexuality is a part of you, but it's not something that will consume you. So don't run away from it. Explore, try to understand who you are. As a people just think of sex and think it has to be the act. Your beliefs, so your attitudes, your experiences, your learnings, all of those things make up who you are as a sexual being. All right. So I think that people need to be able to start figuring those things out about them. So that when they even meet somebody, you can have those rich conversations together before you even get into marriage, right?
Love it. Love, love, love it. Um, I want to talk about how sex builds intimacy, because perhaps some people don't even know that they're missing out. I have sex with my husband and I think it's okay, and
Yeah.
and that's it. What is that role of sex in intimacy in marriage, and how does it present when it's absent?
Mm. Okay. So when we talk about intimacy, right, I like to divide them. So we have emotional and relational intimacy, we
Mm,
have physical intimacy, and then we have sexual intimacy. All
mm,
of these things are built into who we are, right? And
mm,
all of these things can improve your relationship. So you can find that some couples have some form of relational intimacy, right? Um, Perhaps even physical intimacy. But when it comes to sexual intimacy, it doesn't work. They
mm,
just find that sex is not working, right? If you ask people who feel like sex is okay in their marriages, right? If you ask them, how would you, what percentage would you say sex contributes to your overall marital satisfaction? Maybe they'll say, oh, maybe 30%, it's 40, it's okay, 40, 30, 40. But if you see people that have problems with sex and ask them that question, the the percentage, right, is entirely disproportionate. They can tell you like 90%. Do you
mm.
understand? So when sex works, people think, oh, it's one of those things. But when it doesn't work, it takes on a magnitude of, I mean, it becomes such a huge problem, right? That people can't even focus on anything else, right? Sex is not working, so relationship begins to suffer because they're not
Mm,
connecting that way, right? Sex
mm,
is not working, and then you see that problems that you should easily resolve between yourself because one person or maybe even both is feeling very sexually frustrated and can't express it. People are boss, they are outbursts, right?
mm. They
And
say, come on, tell me, why are you talking to me today like that?
absolutely, absolutely, right? People are busting out because they are frustrated, pent up
Tense up.
frustration, right? Exactly. There's no release. And the interesting thing, even when you find people who are saying, okay, they have a sexual problem, so they are coping with it, for instance, with masturbation, they are still not satisfied because what they're looking for is that communion together of expressing, of bonding, or and again, sex means different things to different people, right? For some people, it's an expression of love, right? And so when they are rejected, when somebody says, "Oh no, I'm not having sex," actually, when you do, no, is it food? What's going on? Is it food every day? Please go, right? What does that? To some people, it's not just a rejection of the sex, a rejection of self. Because what it
Mm,
means to them is love. I'm trying to express my love to you. I'm
mm,
trying to share this with you because I love you, and then you are rejecting it. But so people are not seeing it as rejection of sex; they're seeing it as rejection of self, and that can hurt. That can build resentment, anger, and so many relational problems. Right? Some people, for them, sex is how they connect. Some people, for them, sex is how they go to sleep, sleep
mm.
medication, right? Some people, some people is stress relief. Let me tell you something very interesting. There's a man that came to me, and then the issue was that him and his wife were not having as much sex, but it was coming from him, right? And very, very interesting conversation. And then we got talking and all of that, and then we're talking, and then I wanted to know how he felt and all of that. And then he says, anytime they have sex, he sleeps off, right? And he has a lot of work to do, right?
During
And
the
so
act.
no, afterwards he
Oh,
sleeps
okay.
off afterwards, yeah. And he has a lot of work to do, right? And so when he sleeps off, he starts to miss deadlines, right? Do you understand? And so something had happened where he slept off and got to work late, and his boss really gave it to him. So for him, it's like sex leads to, so he had connected it. Sex leads to deep sleep. This can put me in trouble. So you find that he started to, anytime he felt that he had a lot of work to do, he'd refuse sex. And the wife was wanting it. Do you see the dynamics of how interesting it can be? Right? Just because somebody says he has work, or because something happened in the office, he has already linked it to say, okay, this thing can put me in trouble if I do. Do you understand? So on the days he has this, he will not, right? And he's not willing to open up to your wife and say, okay, this is the problem. He just says, not now, not now, I'm busy. And then the wife kept getting frustrated, right? So the when it doesn't happen, or when it's not happening as it should be, it can be so problematic, right? On the other hand, simply just having sex, right? For some people can just be merely a physical activity when there's no intimacy involved, right? So you just basically want to have sex. So for some women, for instance, say, oh, I feel like I'm just a tool for him to get his release, right? Because whether we like it or not, there are people for whom emotional intimacy and relational intimacy create a desire for sexual intimacy, right? So it means that if emotional or relational intimacy is lacking, they're not desiring to express themselves with you sexually.
Yeah.
They're not desiring to be in that space
I
with
think
you,
most
right?
women would be in this bucket.
A lot of women feel like that, right? So you can't just come at the end of the day, we didn't connect, nothing, and then you just come and then you want to have sex. So a lot of people are feeling like, well, am I just the tool for you to get? Do you understand? And on the man's end, it might be different. Yeah, I just want to connect with you this way. Just that kind of thing, right? And so there's a lot of things, a lot of dynamics involved, right? So on one hand, if it's just about the sex alone, right, other things can suffer and can also lead to resentment and just this thing for you to get your satisfaction, but you don't cater to me in a relationship, you don't cater to me emotionally, and that can breed a lot of resentment and rejection as well. So it could go either way.
Either way. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Wow. This is so insightful. Thank you so much. I just kind of feel my head is just like a junction right now. There are like three ways I want to go at the same time, and I love when that happens on the podcast because my mind is just like, oh my god, but I want to ask this. Oh wait, don't ask this one first. And
We've actually gone
I
45 minutes.
know, and I've literally what I'm like, there's no time. God help me.
Wow, time flies when you're
I would
having
be
fun.
interested. Same here. I'll be interested to hear about, when and I talked about it at the start, just how you present. I mean, I've seen a lot of intimacy coaches, and but there is a way in which you show up with such boldness. There's no like, wait, what? Sometimes I'm like, what? Olawumi is here again. So I will be interested because I see you as one of the pioneers in this reculturalization, reconditioning of our minds to say, you know what, this is not a bad, it's okay to talk about sex, it's okay to, to express, it's okay. I see as one of those
Yeah,
kind of,
absolutely.
forerunners in this. What is that cost to you as a person? How what is that? How are you perceived? How do people react to you when you show up so boldly? And this is important because in the context of being created for more, we have to stand up firmly for our convictions. If we feel that, you know what, this is what I have been sent to do, I will do it, and I will do it unashamedly, unapologetically. I will stand boldly, and I will stand right. You know, it's easy
Yeah.
when I say I'm standing boldly for helping women and transforming lives on my podcast, and it's easy because everyone accepts it.
Yeah.
But when your own is it's like literally you're going out into the wild, you know, and it is obviously it's a cultural thing because in other places it's absolutely fine. Maybe their own sexual coaches and therapists and all that. It's a normal thing. It's normalized. But in our context, it's a taboo. Like, so how are you received? What does that cost to you to do what you? What does it cost you? Sorry, I know it's a bit of a loaded question,
Yes,
but I
yes.
hope you get what I'm asking.
Yes, yes, yes. And so let me answer it like this, right? My husband is one of my biggest supporters, like my number one supporter, right? And when I started to do this, a lot of people would go to him because they felt he could influence me. Of course, he can. They felt, okay, this is, if we talk to this person can put a leash on this woman, right? And a lot of people would go to my husband and say all sorts of things. My husband wouldn't tell me. He protected me. He shielded me from all of that negativity, right? And you know what's interesting? I didn't just stop at talking about sex. I also do sex toys, right? I also talk about toys and stuff like that. And then when I started that,
Your new
there was
chair.
more.
Oh my gosh. Delivery in the UK.
Oh my God. Yes, we will deliver. We can deliver to you.
We're following you. Trust me. We might not be saying anything, but we are following. Some of us, we are looking.
Oh,
and I'm sure you don't get as many likes as you probably should for the type of content that you put out.
Yeah,
but people are watching, but people are probably not registering.
Yeah, some people send us DMs and say, I've been following you for a long time. I know I'm a silent follower. So I know that we have silent followers, right? So when that also happened, there was more pressure, right? But my husband shielded me from everything. Everything. He just wanted me to focus. Like my husband just says, fly, just fly, because this is what God has asked you to do. Just do it. So I can't take the credit, right? I can't take all of that credit. He shielded me. He did not let any of those things get to me, right? To the point where it started to affect me and all of that. So I was able to focus on what I had to do, right? So I developed this kind of tunnel vision up until the point that I became very confident in what I do, right? And then now people come to me and say this, so I would very easily talk to you, even smile with you, laugh with you. Now it's just like water off a duck's back, right? But it was because that man shielded me at the early stages.
Fragile beginning.
Exactly.
That's what I call it. Fragile beginning.
And so a lot of people say, "Oh, allow me, I'm sorry." So what happens now is that we get a lot of positive feedback. The brand gets a lot of well wishes and basically positive feedback. And people see me on the road or see me somewhere and like, I'm thinking to myself that I don't really know this person, but this person doesn't know what. I'm like, hi, and I'm like, oh, sex therapist. I'm like, oh, yes. So we get a lot of that, and I think
and
that.
And a shy person in real life because you look shy.
I am very. How do I put it? I think I'm. What's it called? I'm introverted, right? I am really.
Yeah, you do.
I am introverted.
It's
yes.
this,
but
this
I come out in my element.
You show out, like
yes,
when you show out,
absolutely. So I come out. So there's that part of me, right, and that comes out at certain times, right, and also comes out with people that I'm very close to. So someone can meet me now and say, "Oh, she's so quiet, she's so this," and then people that know me will say, "Quiet? She's not quiet." How can you say that is not a, do you understand? So we have that, right? so yes. So I'm introverted in some aspects and in some of the ways I'm out there. So yeah. So I think for negative comments, the truth is, I think because of the confidence that has developed over the years, I find that people are not comfortable to come to me with negative comments, right? yeah, people are not comfortable because I think that confidence kind of scares them that if this person can do something like this, let's just mind our business and be saying it in our mind. And so I'm all
Don't mind our business and be saying it in our mind.
right.
Oh, I love it, love it, love it. So, allow me, and I shared this before we started about how much of an inspiration and how much you epitomize, the phrase paint purpose. It's like when I heard your story, obviously I've been part of your program, one of your programs, but I'll tell you which one. But I've been inside on the inside with you.
Yes.
And I've heard you talk about, obviously the painful experience that you had around sex. And the way you even said it, I don't know. Somebody was talking about, oh, I don't know, they were being a bit shy, and you were like, oh, for me, this has happened, and I'm able to. And I was like, I just took a step back, and just that admiration, and just and inspiration and whatever. I just welled up. It something inside me just felt a little bit like, oh my gosh, this is incredible that she can look upon a pain and not see pain somehow. So can you just talk us through it, obviously with as much detail as you are comfortable to share? Obviously I know it's
Sure.
sensitive, but just because I think it helps people see that, what, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to end in pain. You can actually translate into something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Helping people see that it can, I mean, pain can turn to something positive, right? And at the same time, help people understand that pain can turn to something positive. Yes. I actually don't mind sharing that story. So at age 15, I was raped when robbers came to the house. So I was gang raped by robbers and all of that, right? And, you know,
In your home, like your mom and
yes,
dad,
in
everyone
the
was
home. Yes, my dad and my stepmom at the time, right? And you know what was interesting? I told you I've always been interested in sex, right? Sexuality and all of that, right? And so I've never bought the message that sex is dirty or shameful, right?
there.
And so I think that on a very fundamental and basic level, I knew that sex wasn't, even though I was raped by these people, sex was not the problem. It was how these people chose to use it that was the problem, right? Sex is sex. You can use it well and it will be beautifully amazing. Or you can use it wrongly and use it to hurt people and harm people and all of that, right? And I knew sex wasn't the problem. It was the way the people chose to use it that was the problem, right? So sex for me, I just maintained that positivity. And I also like to share the story because I want people to understand that, oh, when people see the way I present or the things that I do social media, they think, ah, this person, she must be enjoying it. I mean, maybe she's never had any problem, right? Do you understand? They think, maybe it's always been smooth sailing. Yeah. But the truth is that I've had this kind of experiences, right? But
Scarring experience.
I knew that sex wasn't the problem, right? And if I had allowed sex to be a problem in my mind, what I would have done what was that I would have given power to those people who did what they did. I would have allowed them to rob me of my future, my pleasure that God has given me, and they would have gone years. They probably would have even forgotten that they did it. But I would have been living with that pain and giving the power to them and to that trauma. So first of all,
Before we even, in this moment, I just really feel a leading. You're speaking to many people, but I want you to speak to just a few people. Somebody who is listening to this, who has been raped.
yeah.
Who is listening to you and probably at this point crying. I want you to speak to them about just navigating their way
Hmm. So if you've been raped or sexually abused,
out.
trust me, that trauma is significant, right? And sometimes people make the mistake and say, "Oh, you should have gotten over it because so much time has passed." There's no statute of limitation. Some people have gone through trauma 50 years ago, and because that trauma has not been resolved, 50 years after, it's as fresh as if it happened yesterday. So if you're in pain, I totally understand. And it is not because you are you are weak. It's not because you are holding on to it or anything, right? It just means that the trauma hasn't been resolved. But if it did not kill you, if you're still here, right, that pain can birth purpose. That pain, it might not necessarily be that you're going into sex, it might be that your story can inspire and empower people, right? Right? But at the same time, if you're going through this pain, please get the help that you need. Don't be ashamed, right? You should not be ashamed. People that did it are the ones that should be ashamed, right?
Yes.
Don't be ashamed. Don't allow
Shame.
shame rob you of the good things that you should have. Don't allow shame rob you of good things. Don't be ashamed. The shame should never be on you. I know sometimes society will say, "Oh, you've been raped. Oh, no, 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 no." That's very negative and very, very bad thinking, honestly, right? Very dysfunctional kind of thinking that society has cultivated over the years. But the truth is that you should not be ashamed, because the people who did it to you are the ones that should be ashamed, right? Don't let this trauma take good things away from you. Don't let it rob you of good things. Take the power away from it. If you need to go to therapy to walk through it, there's no shame. There's no shame in it at all, right? There's the good things for you on the other side of this. And if you have to seek help to resolve the trauma that you've been through, please seek help and get the help that you need.
Yes. So good. Thank you so much. Sorry, continue your story.
Yes, yes, yes. No. So yeah, it's very important, because you find that a lot of people, right? So okay, so when this happened to me, let me say, right? So because I said sex for me has always been, I've always seen sex as clean, not dirty. So I didn't think that sex was a bad thing, because I knew that it wasn't sex, it was how the people used it, right? But you know what really stood out about my experience?
Tell me.
I felt like God had abandoned me, right? So when that happened, at a point, one of the robbers put before they took me out to rape me, one of them put a gun to my head and called for my dad and asked my dad to come out, but he didn't come out. So I felt abandoned by my father, my earthly father. I felt abandoned. And interestingly, the Holy Spirit revealed that to me years after, to say, you are hurting. You are hurting because you haven't walked through this. You haven't dealt with this, right? And then I also felt abandoned by God, because like I said, I've always been a voracious reader. So there's some books, some Christian books I'll read where they're depicting God and the angels, like maybe something bad wants to happen to you, and then God just says, "Hey, send the angels, go and do." So I had this picture. So they used to call me Jehovah. They call me Jehovah Action Movie in my church. So I had this picture that this is how God is, and literally God could have just taken one thunderbolt, wah, and just scattered them. Do you understand?
Wow. Oh my
But
God.
that didn't happen, and I felt so abandoned, not just by my physical, my parents, but by God. I think that was the biggest thing for me. I felt so abandoned, and then I had to. I then developed this how do I put it, this character or attribute that I had to be there for myself at all times. I had only just me, right?
Oh wow.
That was the biggest thing for me. And so when God told me, when I was asking God for direction, God says, "This is what I want you to do," right? And I was saying, "Really? Are you sure this is what you want me to do?" And then he did something that made me realize that he did not abandon me. I don't know why that thing happened, right? But he still turned it around for good. One of the first things that he did was he ordered my steps to go for a particular conference, right? And so I went for that conference. I was dressed, yeah, and I just said, "I'm not going again." And so I lay on the bed. And then the Holy Spirit kept saying, "Get up and go, get up and go." So I went for the conference. And then when we got to the conference, they were asking, "Oh, if you want to share any story with us, share stories with us." And then so I wrote my entire story on a paper, and then I gave it to the people, the ushers in the conference, right? And then they read everybody's story, but they didn't read my own. And they were about closing. So they were like, "Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, everybody. So thank you. It was amazing, but it was an amazing conference." So they were rounding up already, vote of thanks. And then somebody just runs to the stage. anytime I remember it, I just feel someone just ran to the stage and then went to meet the person, was the pastor, and she went to meet the pastor, and then she was like, Pastor, you have to read this. I mean, they were already at vote of thanks, we're closing. And then she was like, Pastor, you have to read this. And then the pastor picked it up, and the pastor was like, I'm so sorry, everybody, but I have to read this. And then she read it, and she was so emotional. She was like, please, whoever you are, if you're this person, please meet with this person, and she's going to direct you to our counseling unit and everything like that. And I did. I went, and so they gave me an appointment to come and everything. And then I met with a counselor, right? For the first time in my life, somebody was allowing me to talk about what I went through, right?
How many
Because
years later
all
was this?
it was about how many years? I'm sure it's about 12 or so. I mean, over 10 years.
You
Well
hadn't
over 10 years.
opened up about it in that
Oh,
time.
well over 10 years. No, I had tried because I'm a very expressive person. But anytime I try, people say, oh, forget about it, be grateful you are alive. So I was made to feel ungrateful. Do you understand? Be grateful you are alive, forget about it. For everybody just forget about it. Oh, it's past, forget about it. But I couldn't because I hadn't processed it. So everybody and I'm very expressive, so everybody I wanted to tell just kept shutting me down or could not even just provide me the emotional support that I needed. You understand? And so for the first time in my life, somebody said, talk about it. Let's talk about it. How do you feel? And that was a huge, huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I mean, my journey in therapy began and all of that, right? But that's how I knew that God took care of me. He didn't just send me out and say, okay, now I'm asking you to. He knew that I was harboring pain because of what had happened, because I felt He was not there for me. And then when He was going to send me on this assignment, He made sure that He took care of me, right? First. Because that day I was dressed and I just laid down on the bed. I said, I'm not going again, Joe. And then Holy Spirit kept saying, get up and go, get up and go. And so, I mean, that was, yeah, it's a lot. So that was it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
with us. I don't think you will ever fully understand what you've done with the show today. But I know that there's so many people who have gotten, they just released from emotional pain, at least, or at least starting that transition to seeking help. They feel like they have the permission to come out of it because of what you've said. So I just want to say thank you so much. This was so powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do on behalf of all the people who receive it, silent and the known. In fact, I also have to work on myself because there's obviously still something that is unresolved there. That is why I'm silent. I just have to say thank you. Thank you so much for just showing that indeed you are created for more. What does being created for more mean to you? As you know, I'll ask that as the final question as we wrap up. What does being created for more mean to you?
Yes, being created for more to me means being your most authentic self, right? And allowing that authenticity flow not just to yourself but to other people. I feel like when we are at our most authentic selves, we are not bothered about competition or what's going on or what another person is doing. We are able to be true to ourselves, right? And when you're sitting comfortably in a chair, like you are not sitting on the edge. Do you understand? You're sitting comfortably. I say yes, this is who I am, and this part of who I am flows out to other people like a river. For me, that's what a depiction of being created for more looks like for me.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. And how can people? Someone's heard from you today. How can they work with you? What's the best way to engage, with your services and so that they can start to elevate their pleasure?
So they can check out our Instagram page, Olaomi Eson Sex Therapy.
I will link all that in the show notes.
All right, and then the website www.olaomieson.com. You can check through our website, our services, and then just click the link, send an email, and basically you could just get started on your journey to sexual pleasure. Amazing, mind-blowing sexual pleasure.
I love it. Here for it. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. And yeah, let me know what you think. Drop a comment, review, rate, like, do something. Don't be a silent listener on this one. No. Let us hear from you. All right, then. Thank you so much, Alam.